I've been working in professional photography for years, and having not gone to photography school, I believe that I have acquired a large amount of unconventional advice that I think would be quite helpful to anyone trying to improve their skills that they just won't generally come across in any traditional education environment. So here you go. Often a lot of the time in terms of branding and websites, people will tell you to have one genre of photography. You just do weddings, you just do events, you just do nightclubs, you just do concerts, whatever it may be. And sure, that might be the branding on your website, because if that's the work you're getting, you want to look like you're a specialist, you're the best at it. But in terms of your personal experience and practice, it is highly valuable to photograph everything, because then you can bring skills and artistic perspectives from each of these genres into another one, which helps you once again create something extremely unique that experts in that genre probably haven't done before, because they are so in their mind about how things are supposed to be done. I think one of the biggest lessons that I've had to be learning myself as I acquire more gear is about learning and understanding when you should just take a nice little camera with you and when you should take a mammoth of a lens will save you a lot of chiropractic fees, because you're not lugging around a 15-kilo backpack everywhere you go. In the beginning, you're taught what is the correct way to take a photograph, how do you line up subjects and things like that. But at some point you get to a point where it is not about taking a correct photograph, it is about developing your taste. It is about what looks right to you, what feels right to you. When I have people ask, do you want my professional photographer friend to tell you their thoughts on it? It's like, no, not really. Because all they're going to tell me is their taste. How can I make my photo look more like their taste? When at some point you need the confidence to say, no, I did it this way because I like it. And it's the same thing Phineas was saying with music.
He said, listen, it's really important that you understand the delineation between the correct way to do something and whether you like it or not. Everyone in the music world is going to tell you why you did something incorrectly. You know, there's, oh, that's too loud. And he was like, it's really important to like something or not like it, because your taste is what really matters. And it's also going to be your greatest defense.
And this is why it's so important to obtain inspiration from a variety of mediums. And because of your way of interpreting different forms of art can once again make your art even more special, even more unique, and hence hopefully dig deeper in the people you present it to. Often I have been asked what photo studios I have used, and a lot of the time my answer is, it wasn't a photo studio, it was their living room wall, and I just had a janky little ring light. And from that, I was able to make it look like it was studio quality. So being able to take these photos under janky conditions, yet make them look professional, is a skill that you absolutely should develop. I think as well, if you're up and comer in this space, if you're trying to expand your network or your knowledge or your skills or expertise or whatever it may be, don't be afraid to reach out to people. Because everyone in this industry is an absolute nerd about their craft. The amount of times I have made connections off TikTok or Instagram, just sending DMs or commenting under videos, because everyone loves providing advice, because they're happy just to speak to someone who is nerdy about the craft as they are. And people are so friendly as well. The amount of advice that I've been given, the amount of jobs I have obtained just by reaching out to people across the world is absolutely awesome. And I'm so glad that this is the industry I've chosen. The one thing that I always keep in mind at any location I go to, just put in that tiny little bit extra effort. I was wandering with my friend in Nara when we were in Japan a couple of weeks ago, and everyone's on this main path. This main path is insanely busy. You walk like 30 meters to the side into this parklands, this wide open greenery space, and then there's like a whole temple structure just beyond it, dead empty. And that only took just veering off the path slightly. So if that is the mentality that you go in with, you're going to create art that is incredibly unique, because you're not just doing the same thing that everyone did. Yes, you've got that cliche photo from the front, but can you literally go behind, see what opportunities are there? Because in the process of that, you may see things that you would not even have imagined standing in that front angle. And yes, maybe it's terrible, but if it's good, it's going to be really good, because it's not going to be the common stuff that you see all the time. And hence, once again, you're going to be producing work that is extremely unique. I mean, I didn't go to photography school. I just learned photography by taking, surely it's got to be 1 million photos by now. I didn't have any traditional form of education in this matter, but only in the last couple of years have I even really been looking at other photographers' work. I picked up this WordPress book yesterday, and I think there is an element there where if you're just looking at everyone else, if you're just purely taking advice off everyone else, especially just one individual, one organization, you are only going to be taking photos like they tell you to take photos. Or if you take a little bit of inspiration from there, a little bit of inspiration from there, you're going to find out what your style is, because you're like, my favorite component of his photography is this, my favorite component of her art is this. And from that, you have your own style that is extremely unique and not like everyone else's that you see online. In line with that, the advice so many boomer photographers give is, oh no, you're not good if you're taking so many photos. It's like, dude, we don't have film anymore, we have digital. And all it's going to cost is storage space on your laptop. The amount of times there are research studies that show if you tell one person to make the best bit of pottery, and you tell this other person to just make 30 of them, the person who makes 30 of them is by far better than the person who just tries to perfect one. So taking a lot of photos is a good thing because then you very quickly have a large sample size of what works and what doesn't. The one thing that has gotten me jobs in photography is to be nice and deliver results. Applying for jobs has rarely ever gotten me a job, mainly because I'm aiming too high. But just being able to deliver and make sure people are having a good time has meant I've been constantly brought back. I've been constantly recommended to others because they're able to trust that if they recommend you to one of their friends who is needing someone, you're going to be able to deliver and they're going to enjoy your presence. So if you can do that, that is going to get you infinitely more work than anything else. One thing I'm not yet though, which I definitely need to work on, is being decisive. Because in your editing process, if you're quickly and easily able to just go boom, bad, 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 good, bad, good, bad, 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 good, bad, your time in Lightroom is going to be significantly reduced. And if you're doing a fixed rate work, your hourly rate is going to be way higher because you're only spending 5 hours editing rather than 7, 10, 12, 14. So if you can train yourself into being easily able to decide what is good photo, what is a bad photo, you're going to be making so much more and things are going to be so less painful. Often the main focus of photographers getting in the space is to get a nice little mid-range or wide-angle lens. With that stuff, you can take photos of friends, you can do those nightclub jobs that don't pay, and you can get good work. But I think one of the most underrated lenses is the telephoto lens. Yes, this is a mammoth. Yes, it weighs a ton and destroys your back, but the photos you can get with this are unlike anything else. You can punch into moments that you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. If you're doing street photography, it is significantly less stressful and less awkward because you're not running up to someone in their face and flashing them. It's highly unethical. Don't do that. Don't be one of those American paparazzi. And in line with that, I think what most people get wrong about what they can do with street photography is they don't understand what it means of who owns copyright, nor do they understand who they can take photos of, what the rights are in regards to that. From what I have done in my own research, because I am not a lawyer, this is just what I have interpreted for myself and trying to consult my journalist friends, is that it is about an expectation of privacy. I remember reading about some case where some photographer was able to publish photos, even though it was through people's windows. But because those window shots were taken from the street, there was no expectation of privacy. Like a shopping center, you're able to take photos there, like with your phone, whatever. Because yes, it's a private space, but there's no expectation of privacy in a food court around 1,000 other people. But in the bathroom of that shopping center, well, that completely changes everything because there's an expectation while you're doing your business, they're not making a business of you doing your business. So basically, if you're in public and you're not defaming someone, you're not harassing someone, and you're not strapping a Nike logo next to them, you're pretty much all right to take a photo and do whatever you want with it. If you're doing street photography, there's an interesting note about cultural differences that what light changed? Don't mean this one, this kind of gone flat. That's why the room is darker. But I was talking with a YouTuber friend. He made a good point about when he's in Asia, whether it be like India, Pakistan, there's a different perception around cameras. In the West, if you were to shove a camera in someone's face, they'll be like, oi, go away, like, what are you doing here? But in different countries, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I want to get in it. So it's also keeping a note of what's this expectation here? Do people want to be in front of camera? Do they not want to be in front of camera? How do you keep enough space that you're not harassing them? But also at what points do you ask for permission? Like where this lies, I think you need to take a personal introspective look. How would you want to be treated in this situation? And hence from there, you can understand how you should behave when on the street taking photos of others. One thing photographers will tell you is that gear doesn't matter, but it obviously does. There's a reason I switched from the Canon 80D to the Sony a7 IV, because it was missing about 80% of the photos I was taking just due to low light and inability to keep up with the autofocus. So I switched to a better camera because it was able to once again capture these photos. So I wasn't losing out 80% just because it couldn't keep up. But there is also an element of you don't want to invest too heavy if you don't know this is your craft yet. The amount of insane photos I was able to take, the amount of award finalist photos that I was able to take with that amateur 80D is insane. So don't sleep on them, but also understand their limitations and when it's time to move up. For one thing, I hate the most, and I honestly do not understand, is when professional photographers do not shoot in full manual. They'll be like, oh, I use aperture priority, I use shutter priority. How does that make sense? Manual is the easiest thing. There are 3 settings, in which usually 2 of them you can set prior to taking any photos. And yet they'll set something on auto for no reason whatsoever. It's like, I want full control. The one moment I realized this was I went on a trip to Tasmania and I had just a point and shoot camera. And I came back. A lot of the photos were ruined because the camera on auto had absolutely no idea how to take a photo. It was taking a photo at a 4,000th of a second for a landscape that does not move, rather than just having the photo at a 100th of a second, keep the ISO low so there's no fuzziness, and having a beautiful shot. So it is so important that you learn manual and don't go with all this nonsense of aperture and shutter priority unless it is for a very specific purpose, like a sunset time lapse or something. I think the most important thing that I've learned is making photographer friends that you can go out with, that you can enjoy the day with. I've learned so much more about my city just by having these friends, because we will go out, we will shoot, I will learn from them, they will learn from me, we'll learn each other's artistic styles, new techniques that we have picked up on. And from this, you could hugely develop your craft. And on top of that, if they get work that they can't complete, they can pass that on to you. If you get work that you can't complete, you don't just say to the client, have fun, mate. You say, I've got someone perfect for you. Having these people is an absolutely insane way of developing a craft. The reason I was able to pick up this camera that is sold out across the planet is because I had someone who worked in a shop and said, hey, we got one in, tell me now if you want me to put it aside for you. And because of this, you're just able to enjoy this process much more. If you're wanting to start in this space, I couldn't recommend more protests and wildlife, because these are things that aren't intimidating. There's lots of excitement going on, and you can just take thousands and thousands and thousands of photos. You're not having to pose a model and figure out the complexities. But protests, so many things are going on. It's the perfect street photography. You're not just walking down a street that has nothing. There's people who are angry, there's people who are shouting, they've got creative signs, you've got these crowds, you've got these people speaking on big stages. From there, you're able to capture some incredible moments that are significantly harder to do in general street. So obviously, once again, you need to do all genres, but if you're just starting out, these are some perfect places to do it. Also, for making photographer friends, if you need an extra piece of gear and you don't want to drop $10,000 on it, you can borrow it from a friend who's already got it. I mean, I've loaned out a bunch of my light stands at the moment because she needed it for work that she is currently doing. Hence why this light that went out is just sitting on the table and not on a stand like it was before. An interesting thing that I look at, and when I've mentioned it to people, they kind of get confused, is with a photo, it is about looking for the center of mass. And it's not about do things like a line on a vertical, it's about what is the weight of this image. And I don't quite know how to explain it in other words, and you'll just get a feel for it as you take more and more photos. But from that, you'll get an understanding of how things need to be cropped, how things need to be positioned based on the weight of subjects. That open space has a weight, that faces have a weight, that if they turn to a certain side, you don't necessarily want them in the middle because then it feels off. But from doing it enough, you'll get a better idea of what this means. I think overall, really the key is just to get out there, make photographer friends, take literally a million photos and just learn from going over and over again. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. On top of this POV photography video I took here of one of the biggest climate strikes for the entire Australian government was effectively wiped out.